It's a dark and dreary day. There's a chill in the air. Fall is creeping its way around the corner, and it's the perfect time to announce a new Wuthering Heights movie cast, unless of course that is, you completely screw it up. That's right folks, the Wuthering Heights cast will main cast Heathcliff and Cathy, the kind of two essential characters that you need for a Wuthering Heights adaptation, have been announced, and it is, much like that book, tragic. Wuthering Heights, if you haven't heard of it, is a super famous novel by Emily Bronte from 1847. It is basically the gothic romance book, and it revolves around, of course, our main doomed couple, Heathcliff and Cathy. So there have been many adaptations of Wuthering Heights over the years. No surprise considering the lasting impact it has on literature. I feel like even people who don't read a lot, read classics, or have even read Wuthering Heights know who Heathcliff and Cathy are. What was a little eyebrow raising from the start was who was going to be adapting it, and that is director, writer, Barbie actress, I just found out because apparently she played Midge in the Barbie movie, Emerald Fennel. So she is most known for Promising Young Woman and Saltburn, which got a ton of attention last year. I will say, when I found out she was making this, I was excited for a Wuthering Heights adaptation because I feel like anytime we get like an adaptation, like a more modern, I say modern just like in the time, not like actually the film taking time in the modern time. I like it because I feel like I can get into it of like getting excited for like the trailer, the press release, all that stuff because it's like my time of when it's coming out, you know? So it's instead of watching like the older versions, like I'm like, oh, I'm actually living like getting casting, getting all that and stuff like that. However, it being Emerald Fennel did raise some eyebrows for me, like I said, just because I'm not a fan of either of her most well-known works, which again are Promising Young Woman and Saltburn. Saltburn in general, I just absolutely never had any interest in watching. I think there's a great video by this YouTuber, I love Jordan Teresa, who explains like watching it and why she didn't like it and how a lot of what it's credited with people being like, oh, it's like about class divide and all that, how it doesn't actually really say anything about class divide. So I feel like I was just a little concerned because I do feel like she can swing for the fences where it's just shock value, right? I feel like Promising Young Woman will have the longer shelf life in terms of like being talked about because it just seems like there's more to talk about with that, whereas Saltburn, again, it's this class commentary, but it's not really a commentary on class when you get down to it. And again, I'm going to link that video down below because I feel like Jordan just explains it so well. I had my concerns, okay, but I was still really excited. I was like, give me my gothic romance, give me my sweeping landscapes on cinema and everything like that, and I will be just so happy. Unfortunately, the other day, it came out with who was being cast in our main leads of Heathcliff and Cathy, and I honestly don't know which one is, well, no, I do know which one is worse. So let's start with Cathy, because I think Cathy is not great, but it's not as bad as Heathcliff for reasons that I will explain. So Cathy in the novel is 19. She's young, and that's kind of like the point of it. She's young, she's naive, she's impressionable, and I am never one to advocate for not casting older women in things. However, in this case, Margot Robbie as Cathy, I do think is a miscast. One, I always feel like with big projects like this where you already have a quote-unquote big name director, I'm always more impressed when they take a chance on either that someone not as well known or a complete unknown, because I feel like you've got the star power, quote unquote, of having the big name director. I'm thinking of with Priscilla, Kaylee, I can never say her last name, but Kaylee Spaney, and how just dominant she was in that role and how she's booked and busy now because of it. But I do think in this case, her age is so important to her character and her growth and who she is at the time, her naivety, I can never say that word, but I think I almost nailed it that time. Now Heathcliff. We have to talk about Heathcliff because this is the one that I think is really getting people's gears going for a very, very good reason. Heathcliff in the book, let me pull up the specific description for it, because here's the thing, this is a very important part of Heathcliff's character, is he is described as dark-haired, dark-skinned, and because of that, he faces abuse from his adopted family. Him facing racial abuse from his adopted family is a big part of his character. So to take that away from him and whitewash him into Jacob Elordi not only takes away from a character that's fundamental to your story, but takes away a fundamental theme of your story. Now, obviously, there have been multiple iterations of Heathcliff where he has been whitewashed before. However, I think there is a lot more accountability in 2024 to do your research, to make sure that you are doing the most to accurately adapt a book. Again, if you want to change hair color, if you want to change a setting that's not important to the theme of a story, that can all be described and made so it's not changing the core of the story. But Heathcliff's story is, again, the abuse he faces. And again, I think in this day and age when social media is so readily available, yeah, maybe back in the 90s or whatever, it wasn't as easy to hear people who are like, hey, this is not right. So people who, again, haven't read the book might not know that, like, this casting is not accurate to what it is. But now it's 2024. You're going to get on the internet and you're going to get more and more people who realize, oh, this isn't what it's supposed to be, because of people who love the book and know the book and are getting the word out there that this isn't accurate to what the book is. The last film adaptation of Wuthering Heights actually came out in 2011, which seemed not that long ago, but is actually, according to my math, 13 years ago. And that had a more book accurate depiction of Heathcliff, played by James Howson. I think also, again, the age thing with Kathy, she's supposed to be young, she's supposed to be impressionable. Like, again, Jacob Elordi is not right in this case, but I think of Priscilla, how they cast someone who was age appropriate, and that Callie was older. I think she was actually closer to Jacob's age, but in the way they presented her in the film, the makeup, everything like that, she came across as very naive and young compared to him, and that worked out well because you saw the imbalance in their relationship and the power dynamics in that. Seeing all this come up also reminded me of another book to movie adaptation controversy that came up a few weeks ago, funnily enough, which was Netflix announcing that they were going to be redoing a picture of Dorian Gray, but their whole big thing was like, what? We're gonna have a fun little twist in this, and that is gonna be that Dorian and Basil, I always never say the British way, are gonna be siblings in our version, which if you've read a picture of Dorian Gray, they are very queer-coded, and their relationship is queer-coded. Oscar Wilde himself was a gay man who was persecuted in his time for that, so in 2024, to now take his work, which again, queer-coded relationship in that, and be like, we're gonna make them siblings, and we're actually so cool and so forward-thinking in that, is just completely missing the point of the book, much like Emerald, I feel, is with her Wuthering Heights movie. And I feel like that leads to a bigger picture and a bigger question of, why are you doing this? Like, I feel like that sounds harsh, but it also, I feel like, you're on top of the world. Like, Netflix, Emerald with Saltburn and everything, she could do any project you want. It just seems like, unless this is like, you're like, I've always wanted to make a Wuthering Heights. Like, it has been my dream since I was a little child. I've always wanted to make this adaptation of this beloved story or book that I know. Unless you feel that strongly, I don't think you should be making an adaptation of a novel, especially a classic novel like Dorian Gray or Wuthering Heights. It feels disingenuous. It feels like you just want to make a story set in that kind of theme, setting, whatever, without actually taking the time to create your own characters, your own plot, and everything like that. So you're just taking a pre-planned plot that's like, oh, thank you, you've got your characters, you've got your setting, everything like that. I will take that, thank you so much. However, these parts that don't work for me, that are actually essential to your story, I'm gonna change that. And that to me is just like, you don't really care about the story that you're adapting, which I think is the worst thing you can do as a creator. Like, that is your job, your responsibility to serve the story that you're trying to tell and the story that you're bringing that someone else invented. It's not your story. And of course you can make your own remake, you can make your own twist on it. I think of like the Emma movie in 2020 that came out. That's like essential, I feel like, for Emma, but it also did such a good job paying homage to the source material. If you're just gonna slap in the face with the source material, like they are with not dealing with the racist abuse they have in Wuthering Heights, or not dealing with the queer undertones in the picture of Dorian Gray, like, why are you adapting this book? Make your own story and make it in the time period, the theme, whatever you want that you like in this, but don't just hide behind it and do a disservice to the actual people who created the book and the people who have read and love the book for as long as these ones have been around. Like, it just seems like disingenuous, like I said, to be like, oh my gosh, I've really always loved this story, but it's like, okay, but you're missing a huge chunk of it by making them siblings, by making Heathcliff a white guy from Australia. You know what I mean? So it's just, it's frustrating. You can make your own stories. Again, Saltburn, that woman probably had the cream, like anything she wrote was probably going to get picked up. I saw this quote from the Collider critic and editor Maggie Bocella, who I think sums it up great, where she says, "It's painfully obvious that Fennel doesn't actually care about Wuthering Heights themes. She just wants to make a tortured lovers drama with a name that'll put butts in seats, as though her last two movies didn't make that shallowness obvious already." Which I think again leads back to that idea of style over quality. I think Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi also suffer from that thing that I've seen where two conventionally attractive people, you put them in a relationship in a film and there's just no chemistry between them. Again, if you want to make a Wuthering Heights movie, make a Wuthering Heights movie and make it accurate. If you want to make a doomed lovers gothic drama, come up with your own freaking script and then you can cast Margot Robbie and Jacob and we'll judge it on our own basis with that if it's a good story or not. I just think this whole thing has disaster written over it, which is unfortunate because like I said, I was so hesitant when I first found out about it, but because it was a Wuthering Heights, I was just excited. I think unknown or like lesser known actors. I would have loved that. I would have loved a more age appropriate Kathy. And again, no shame to Margot Robbie. I love her. She's only 34. That's not old by any means, but Kathy is supposed to be like this naive, doe-eyed, 19-year-old girl. And I just feel like this sets it off on the complete wrong tone, wrong foot, everything like that, because it's just not going to be a Wuthering Heights adaptation. It's not. Again, if she wanted to make a doomed lovers gothic thing, go for it. No one's stopping you from that, but don't take an already well-known and well-loved story and just make your own mark on it. Don't get to take away the story of like his abuse and everything like that from his foster family because of who he is. Like, you've already gotten rid of that. So I just think overall huge miss. I don't really think anything's going to change with it, like I said, because I feel like, again, this is kind of just the worst criticisms of Emerald Fennel. Like, this is her at, like, if you're looking at the cons, this is the cons. So we'll see. It's not going to start filming for like a year or something like that. There's definitely time to change. I just don't think she cares enough to change, which is unfortunate. But it's just like saying you don't even respect the source material that you're using, and you also don't even really understand the source material and the theme. I'm just sad because I was excited, hopeful, maybe naively so in a way for this, but I just think the casting is probably the worst you could have gone, honestly. And not, again, like actor-wise, just, well, actor-wise, but like I don't think they're bad actors. I just think for these parts they're not the correct choices. So yeah, if you have any thoughts on the casting controversy and everything like that, let me know what you thought about it down below in the comments. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!